The market was loud and crowded. Alien voices argued over prices. Bright banners waved in the dusty wind. Smoke, spices, and metal filled the air. Drones buzzed above the crowd like restless insects. Gideon moved through it all like a man half asleep. His boots were worn. His coat was old. A small stone pendant hung under the cloth, resting against his chest. He touched it sometimes without thinking. He had been a soldier once, a leader, a fighter, someone important. Now he was just a quiet traveler, a man trying to vanish in noise. In the market, no one asked about his past. That suited him fine. He walked past stalls of strange fruits, glowing crystals, and dangerous weapons. Then something made him stop. At first, it felt like a pull in his chest. A warning. A message. Something was wrong. Then he saw her. Between two large traders, sitting small in the shadows, a young alien girl was chained to the ground. Her wrists and ankles were locked in thick, rusted metal. A heavy collar dug into her neck. Her skin was a soft purple tone, bruised in places. Silver hair covered most of her face. She sat curled like someone trying to shrink out of existence. Her owner stood nearby, a wide, heavy creature with yellow tusks and mottled green skin. He laughed with another customer, then kicked dust in the girl's direction without even looking at her. The girl flinched hard. For a moment, the market noise faded. Gideon only heard the clink of her chains and his own heartbeat. Then the girl lifted her head. Her eyes met his, deep, bright blue, full of fear and something even worse. The look of someone who no longer expected rescue. Gideon knew that look. He had seen it on battlefields, in prisoners, and in the mirror on dark nights. Something inside him woke up. He stepped toward the slaver. The creature turned, annoyed. "What do you want, human? Looking to buy?" "She's trouble. Hard to control." Gideon's voice was steady. "I want the girl." The slaver laughed. "You? She'll break you. Name your price." Gideon repeated, "Name your price." The creature gave a number far too high, a number meant to scare him away. Gideon didn't argue. He took out a worn pouch of credits, most of what he had left, and handed it over. The slaver's eyes gleamed with greed. He snatched the pouch and shoved the chain toward Gideon. "Good luck, old man. You'll need it." The chain felt cold and rough in Gideon's hand. The girl recoiled, expecting pain. Her whole body shook. Her muscles were tight, waiting for the blow. Instead, Gideon knelt. Slowly, gently, so she could see every move. "I'm not going to hurt you," he said in a soft voice. "You don't have to be afraid." She stared at him like she didn't understand the words. He unlocked her chains one by one. Wrist, ankle, collar. They fell to the ground with a dull clink. She flinched again, expecting punishment. None came. Gideon held out his empty hand, palm up. "You can come with me," he said. "Or stay. It's your choice. But if you come, no one chains you again." The market kept shouting and laughing around them. A few people stared. Some whispered. The girl looked at his hand for a long time. Then, slowly, her trembling fingers touched his. She placed her hand in his palm, unsure, afraid, but willing to try. Her skin was cool and soft against his scarred hand. Gideon rose to his feet, lifting her gently. He didn't look back. He didn't answer the stares or the whispers. He walked forward, leading her out of the market, away from the chains, toward the small, quiet cabin waiting on the edge of the district. He didn't know what waited ahead, but he knew one thing. Today, he refused to walk past one more person in chains. Gideon's cabin sat far from the noisy market, hidden among tall trees and old stone paths. When he pushed open the door, the alien girl hesitated on the threshold. Her bare feet hovered above the wooden floor as if she expected traps or alarms. "It's all right," Gideon said softly. "Nothing here will hurt you." She stepped inside like someone entering enemy territory. The cabin was small but warm. A single fireplace glowed with faint orange light. A wooden table sat in the center, scratched from years of use. Shelves lined the walls, filled with tools, old books, and small metal parts he never threw away. Gideon led her to a short hallway and opened a door. Inside was a simple room, a bed, a small table, a folded quilt, and nothing else. "This room is yours," he said. "You can close the door if you want. You're safe here." She stared at the bed like it was a lie too good to trust. Her hands shook. Her breathing was quick and shallow. Gideon took a step back to give her space. "I'll be outside if you need me." He left the door open behind him, letting her choose whether to close it. Minutes later, he heard the door click shut. The night passed quietly. Gideon sat in his chair by the fire, pretending to read a book while his ears stayed alert. Old soldier habit. He didn't sleep much. He expected nightmares from her room. Silence instead made him worry more. When morning came, pale sunlight slipped through the curtains. Gideon prepared breakfast, a slice of bread, soft fruit, warm tea, and water. Simple, safe food. He placed everything on a small tray and knocked gently on her door. "It's morning," he said. "I brought you something to eat." No answer. He left the tray beside the door and stepped away. After a moment, the door opened just a crack. A single purple hand reached out, grabbed the tray, and pulled it inside. Gideon pretended not to notice. Later, he heard tiny footsteps. She stood near the hallway, half hidden by the wall, watching him like a scared animal studying a stranger. "Good morning," Gideon said softly. He kept his voice calm and his movements slow. The girl didn't speak. Her silver hair fell over part of her face. Her eyes were sharp and frightened, but curious too. Gideon pointed to the table. "If you like, you can sit. Or stay there. Whatever feels safe." Her fingers twitched. Her shoulder tightened. Then she moved, just one careful step, and sat at the far end of the table, body tense, ready to run at the slightest threat. Gideon stayed quiet. He knew pushing her would only break what little trust she had. After a few minutes, she whispered something so soft he almost didn't hear it. "Aya." Gideon looked up gently. "Is that your name?" A tiny nod. "It's a beautiful name," he said with a small smile. "My name is Gideon." Aya looked at him, confused. No one had ever spoken her name as if it mattered. Gideon slowly reached under his shirt and removed the small stone pendant he always carried. It was worn smooth, its symbols faded from age. "This helped me in dark times," he said, placing it gently on the table, closer to her side. "If you want it, it's yours now." Aya's eyes widened. Her fingers hovered above the stone but didn't touch it. Gideon didn't push her. Kindness was new to her. She needed time. He stood up, giving her distance. "I'll be outside, fixing the fence. You can rest. You can explore the cabin. Whatever you choose." Aya watched him carefully as he left the room. When the door closed behind him, she slowly reached out and touched the pendant. For the first time since he found her, her trembling stopped. In the quiet morning light, alone in a room that was truly hers, Aya held the stone close to her chest. She didn't trust Gideon yet. She didn't understand him. But for the first time in her life, a small question appeared inside her heart. What if this place wasn't another prison? Days passed slowly inside Gideon's quiet cabin. Aya still moved like a shadow, silent, careful, always watching. She kept distance between them, as if any sudden step might snap something inside her. But things began to change in small, fragile ways. Every morning, Gideon made breakfast and left it on the table. At first, Aya waited until he walked away before touching the food. Then, little by little, she started coming out earlier, her steps soft as feathers. One day, for the first time, she sat at the table while he was still in the room. She didn't speak. She didn't look at him. But she ate. To Gideon, that small act felt like a sunrise. Aya explored the cabin with slow, curious movements. She touched the wooden walls as if trying to understand their meaning. She examined the shelves filled with books and metal pieces. She paused at the fireplace, staring into the flames with a quiet, lost expression. Sometimes Gideon caught her holding the stone pendant he had given her, running her thumb over the smooth surface. She always hid it when he noticed, but he pretended not to see. He understood what it meant. Holding the pendant meant she was trying to trust, trying to believe she was safe. One afternoon, Gideon sat by the fire repairing an old glove. He worked in silence, letting the crackle of flames fill the cabin. When he looked up, Aya was standing across the room, watching him. Her eyes weren't as hard as before. Not soft yet, but searching. "You can sit," he said gently, nodding to the stool by the fire. She hesitated. Then she stepped forward and sat, her knees drawn up, arms wrapped around them, like a child protecting herself from invisible blows. Minutes passed in silence. Then, unexpectedly, she spoke. Her voice was barely a whisper. Why did you buy me?" Gideon lowered the glove and met her gaze. There was no anger in her eyes. Only confusion, fear, and a fragile spark of hope she didn't want to admit. He answered calmly, simply, "I saw someone who didn't deserve those chains, and I couldn't walk away." Aya frowned, as if his answer made no sense. People didn't help her. People didn't act without cruelty hiding underneath. No one does that, she whispered. No one helps for nothing. Gideon breathed slowly. They should, he said. The galaxy is full of cruel people, but it doesn't have to be full of them. Aya looked down. Her fingers pressed into the pendant she wore. Silence grew warm between them, less frightening than before. Later that evening, she surprised him again. She stepped into the kitchen while he prepared dinner. She stood beside the counter, unsure, like she expected him to yell or strike her. Do you want to help? Gideon asked softly. Aya blinked, confused. Help was always forced, always punished, always demanded. But here, it was a choice. She nodded once, tiny, quick, and he handed her a few vegetables to cut. Her hands shook at first. She cut very slowly, terrified of doing it wrong. You're doing fine, Gideon said gently. No one had ever told her that before. That night, Aya left her room door slightly open. Just a small gap, not wide, not trusting, but a beginning. Gideon noticed. He didn't mention it. He simply walked past quietly, letting her have her victory without pressure. Aya sat on her bed, staring at the door she hadn't fully closed. Her chest felt strange, tight, warm, unfamiliar. She whispered to herself, touching the pendant. Maybe this place is different. Outside, Gideon stepped onto the porch. Cold air filled his lungs as he looked up at the stars. He didn't know if Aya would ever fully trust him, but he knew one thing. For the first time in years, he felt like his life had a purpose again. A small, fragile purpose, but enough to make him stay. Enough to make him try. The days in Gideon's cabin slowly formed a gentle rhythm. Quiet mornings, soft evenings, and small moments that stitched themselves into something close to peace. Aya still moved carefully, as if every step was a test. But she no longer hid in her room all day. She watched Gideon repair tools, tend the fire, and prepare meals with calm patience. And little by little, she began to join him. One evening, Gideon cooked a simple stew. He moved around the kitchen with practiced ease, while Aya stood nearby holding a stack of plates. Here, Gideon said. You can place them on the table if you want. He didn't command her. He didn't raise his voice. Aya placed the plates exactly where he showed her, perfectly aligned, hands trembling slightly. She stepped back quickly, expecting correction or punishment. But Gideon only smiled softly. Thank you, Aya. That helps. She stared at him for a long moment, confused by his gratitude. No one had ever thanked her for anything. Later, they sat by the fire. The flames cast warm light across the cabin, making the shadows dance on the wooden walls. Aya held the pendant in her hand, turning it slowly. The small stone glowed faintly in the firelight. Gideon, she whispered. He looked at her calmly, ready to listen. I don't understand you. He raised an eyebrow gently. How so? You bought me, she said, her voice cracking. But you don't order me. You don't hurt me. You don't yell. That's not normal. Gideon leaned back, hands resting on his knees. I didn't buy you to own you, he said softly. I bought you to free you. Aya looked away, her throat tight. My old master. He said kindness is just a trick. That people like me must pay for it later. Gideon's jaw tightened, but his voice stayed calm. Your old master lied. Aya's breath caught. Her eyes reflected the fire, blue, bright, and full of old pain. She whispered, I don't know how to be free. Gideon spoke in the quiet tone of a man who had spent years learning how to survive his own ghosts. Freedom isn't something you learn in one day, Aya. It's something you grow into, like a seed becoming a tree. She blinked slowly, letting his words settle inside her heart. Over the next days, Aya began opening up in small, fragile ways. She told Gideon about the work camps, the cages, the metal floors that froze her feet, how begging for food became normal, how silence became safety. She didn't cry. Her voice didn't shake. But Gideon heard the scars in every word. He listened to her stories without interrupting, without pity, without trying to fix her pain with empty promises. He simply let her speak, giving her a safe place to put her broken memories. In return, he shared pieces of himself. He told her about the battles he fought, the people he lost, the orders he regretted. His voice was calm, but his eyes carried years of weight. Aya studied him with quiet surprise. You've suffered too, she murmured. We all carry wounds, Gideon replied. Some inside, some outside. She nodded slowly, as if she finally understood something important. Pain didn't make her weak. Pain didn't make her less. Pain was something she shared with someone else for the first time in her life. One afternoon, Gideon found Aya standing outside by the garden, touching a small green sprout growing through the soil. "It's tiny," she said softly, "but it's alive." Gideon stepped beside her. "Even the smallest seed can break through hard ground," he said. "Just takes time." Aya looked at him with a faint, unfamiliar expression. "Am I like that?" she whispered. Gideon met her gaze gently. "Yes, Aya, you are exactly like that." For the first time, she didn't look away. That evening, when Gideon walked past her room, he noticed something new. The door wasn't just cracked open. It was open all the way. A silent message. A quiet step. A beginning of trust. Spring came quietly to the forest around Gideon's cabin. Snow melted, tiny flowers pushed through the earth, and sunlight filtered through the trees in soft golden beams. I spent more time outside now. She walked along the narrow path behind the cabin, touching leaves, listening to birds, breathing air that did not taste like metal or fear. Gideon followed at a distance, not to watch her, but to make sure she felt safe knowing he was close. He noticed something new in her movements. A lightness, a softness, a growing strength. She was changing, slowly, carefully, but undeniably. One morning, Aya picked a small cluster of wild white flowers. She turned them in her hands with the innocence of someone seeing beauty for the first time. "They look fragile," she said quietly, "but they grow here even after cold winters." Gideon nodded. "Strong things don't always look strong." Aya looked up at him, her eyes reflecting the sunlight. "What about people?" she asked. "What about them?" Gideon replied. "Can they grow again after everything?" she whispered. He hesitated, but then said, "Yes, if they choose to." Aya held the flowers to her chest, thinking deeply. She didn't say it out loud, but her heart whispered, "Maybe I can grow too." As the days passed, their quiet routines began to feel almost like a real life. Aya helped Gideon cook, organize the cabin, and tend the small garden. Sometimes she hummed softly without realizing it. And Gideon, he found himself smiling more, sleeping better, feeling lighter, as though the darkness inside him was finally losing its grip. But with that warmth came a fear he had not felt in years. He was beginning to care for Aya deeply, deeper than he expected, deeper than he believed he should. Every time she smiled at him, he felt a tightness in his chest. Every time she leaned close to look at a tool or a plant, he felt something dangerous blooming. Feelings. Real feelings. The kind he thought old soldiers like him didn't deserve. He tried to hide it, tried to be distant, tried to stay only what she needed, a safe place, a calm presence. But his heart refused to listen. One evening, Aya found him sitting alone by the fire. He looked tired, lost in old memories. "You're quiet tonight," she said softly. Gideon glanced at her, then looked back at the flames. "Just thinking." "About your past?" she asked. "About many things." She sat beside him, closer than usual, and hugged her knees. The fire reflected in her blue eyes, making them look like glowing water. "You don't have to hide things from me," she murmured. "I see it when you look away, when your voice changes." Gideon's breath caught. She had noticed more than he realized. "Aya," he said slowly, "you've been through enough. I don't want my problems to become yours." Her voice softened, almost pleading. "You helped me carry my pain, even when I didn't ask. Let me help you carry yours." Those simple words hit him harder than any weapon ever had. But the fear he held inside finally broke through. "Aya, I care about you," he confessed, looking into the fire instead of her eyes. "More than I should, more than I expected, and I hate myself for it." Aya turned toward him, confused. "Why would you hate yourself for caring?" "Because you're young," he whispered. "And I am not. Because you deserve a future, and I'm a man with too many scars and too many years behind me." Aya's eyes softened, but she didn't interrupt. "You deserve someone who can give you a whole life," he continued. "Someone who isn't broken." Silence fell between them, thick, painful, honest. Then Aya did something that startled him. She reached out and took his hand. Her touch was gentle but firm, as if she were grounding him. "You saved my life," she said. "You gave me a home. You gave me safety. And you gave me back my voice." She looked into his eyes without fear. "I don't care about age. I don't care about scars. I care about who you are. And who you are is someone I choose." Gideon's breath shook. He had faced armies without trembling. But Aya's quiet honesty nearly broke him. He whispered, "Aya." She leaned her head against his arm, small and brave. "Let me decide who I want," she murmured. "My freedom should include that choice too." And in that moment, Gideon understood something. Aya wasn't just healing. She was growing, choosing, becoming someone strong enough to speak her heart. And her heart was beginning to reach for him. Winter arrived quietly, wrapping the forest in silver and silence. Snow fell in slow, peaceful waves, covering the cabin roof like a soft blanket. The air was cold enough to sting, but inside, the fire kept the rooms warm and golden. Aya loved watching the snowfall. Sometimes she stood by the window wrapped in a blanket, staring at the white world outside as if it were a dream she had never expected to see. Gideon often joined her, though he kept a bit of distance. Not because he didn't want to be close, but because their conversation by the fire still echoed inside him. Her words, her choice, her hand in his. It scared him more than any war ever had. One morning, Aya spoke softly without looking away from the window. "Gideon, do you ever think about leaving this place?" He blinked. "Leaving? What?" Aya hugged the blanket tighter. "I spent years in cages, years in dark rooms. This is the first place that feels safe. But I want to see the world. I want to see more than walls, more than memories." Her voice trembled, not with fear, but with hope. Gideon stepped closer, slowly. "If that's what you want, Aya, then we go. Anywhere you choose." She looked up at him, surprised. "You'd leave your home? For me?" "It's not the cabin I'm staying for," he said softly. "It's you." Aya's breath caught. A small warmth spread across her face, something like joy, something like fear, something like both. Over the next days, they prepared quietly for the idea of travel. Gideon gathered supplies. Aya folded clothes and packed what little she owned. The cabin filled with movement, plans, and soft laughter. But every night, Aya became quiet again, lost in thoughts she didn't share. Gideon noticed. He always noticed. One evening, after dinner, he placed 2 cups of tea on the table and sat across from her. "Aya," he said gently, "something is weighing on you." She looked down at her hands. Her fingers twisted the end of her sleeve. "I keep thinking," she whispered, "about the people I lost. My family, my clan. I don't know if they're alive. I don't know if they searched for me. Maybe they think I'm dead." Gideon's heart ached at the pain in her voice. "I want to see the stars," she continued. "But I also want to know the truth, even if it hurts." Gideon reached across the table and placed his hand over hers. "Then we search," he said without hesitation. "We look for answers. We follow every rumor, every record, every whisper. You won't face it alone." Aya swallowed hard, tears gathering in her eyes. "No one has ever said that to me," she whispered. "You deserve to know where you came from," Gideon said gently. "You deserve to choose where you're going." Aya squeezed his hand, holding on as if he were the only solid thing in her world. The next morning, Aya stood at the edge of the forest, the breeze brushing her silver hair. She looked stronger, no longer the frightened girl he freed from chains. There was a quiet fire inside her now. She picked up a small wildflower growing through the snow and held it carefully. "This flower shouldn't survive the cold," she said softly. "But it does." Gideon stepped beside her. "You're just like it," he murmured. "You survived what should have destroyed you." Aya looked at him, really looked at him, with eyes full of emotion. "Maybe I survived," she said, "because I was meant to meet you." His breath caught. He didn't know what to say, and for once, he didn't need to. She stepped closer and rested her head against his shoulder. The cold wind moved around them, but the warmth between them didn't fade. That night, she didn't open her door just a little. She left it open wide. A silent message, a quiet trust, a decision. Gideon walked past her room and paused, his heart thudding gently. Aya looked at him from the doorway, her eyes soft. "Stay with me," she whispered. "Not because I'm afraid, but because I want you here." And for the first time in years, Gideon allowed himself to step towards something bright, something hopeful, something that felt like a future. Spring melted into summer, and with it came a quiet courage inside Aya. She no longer hid from the world, no longer flinched at every sound, no longer moved like someone expecting hurt. She stood taller now, spoke clearer, walked with purpose. She was no longer the girl Gideon found in chains. She was becoming someone new, someone free. They left the cabin at dawn. A small pack on Gideon's back. A simple bag on Aya's shoulder. The birds singing. The forest glowing with early morning light. Aya looked back at the cabin only once. It was not sadness she felt, but gratitude. "This place gave me life," she whispered. "And now the galaxy will give you the rest," Gideon said gently. They walked toward the transport docks, side by side. Their journey carried them through busy stations, crowded markets, and strange new worlds. Some stared at Aya with curiosity. Some glared at Gideon with suspicion. Some whispered ugly things under their breath. But every time someone tried to intimidate her, Gideon stepped forward without hesitation. Not angry, not violent, just unshakably human. His steady voice, his calm stare, his refusal to be bullied. It reminded the galaxy of something it often forgot. Humans don't bend when protecting someone they love. They become unbreakable. Aya stayed close to him, not out of fear, but because he made her feel strong enough to face the world. They followed leads about her people, old records, fragments of communication, rumors passed between travelers. Each clue took them farther. Each step gave Aya more hope. But hope was fragile. One day, on a quiet outpost, a merchant handed them an old data slate. "I've seen your species," he said to Aya. "A group passed through this region years ago. They were looking for someone." Aya's heart pounded. "Looking for who?" "For a lost daughter," the merchant replied. The words struck her like lightning. She couldn't breathe for a moment. Her eyes trembled. Her voice broke. "It was me, wasn't it?" Gideon placed a steady hand on her back. "Then we keep searching," he said, "until we find them." Aya nodded, tears falling, not from sadness, but overwhelming hope. Weeks later, on a small moon covered in silver forests, they found what they were searching for. A village of her people, homes carved into glowing stone, voices speaking a language she remembered from childhood. The moment Aya stepped into the clearing, everything stopped. A group emerged, their purple skin shimmering in the light. One of them, a woman with the same silver hair, froze when she saw Aya. Her eyes widened. Her breath stopped. Her hands shook. "Aya," she whispered, voice breaking. Aya stepped forward slowly, tears falling freely now. "Mother!" They ran to each other, falling into a trembling embrace. Years of pain poured out in one long breath. Families gathered around, shocked and overjoyed. Gideon stood back, watching with quiet emotion, hands clasped behind him. Aya turned to him, still crying, and reached for his hand. "Come," she begged softly. "You're part of this too." Her mother looked at Gideon, eyes full of gratitude. "You saved my child," she said. "How can we repay you?" Gideon shook his head gently. "She saved me too," he replied. That night, Aya walked with Gideon beneath the glowing trees. "You brought me from darkness to light," she said, voice steady. "You gave me a life I never thought I'd have. And now, I want you in this new life too." Gideon looked at her, this young woman who had grown from fear into strength, and felt something warm settle in his heart. "Aya," he said softly, "any path you choose, I will walk with you." She took his hand, their fingers intertwined like two stories finally joining. As the moonlight washed over them, Aya whispered, "I was born in chains, but I found freedom with you, and now I choose my future." Gideon smiled, a rare, full smile. "Then let's write it together," he said. Side by side, they walked back toward the village, toward family, healing, and the next chapter of their journey. Not as a rescuer and rescued, but as two souls who found each other in a galaxy full of darkness, and chose to create their own light.